We are consuming more information than ever before. In 2009, researchers found that the average American consumed 34 gigabytes of data per day. And that was in the early days of smartphones, streaming services, and social media. Today, that number will be way higher. I mean, most of the time during a typical working day, we already get overloaded with information. But next to this, you probably also try to enhance your knowledge a bit when you are free from work. I mean, I'm listening to a podcast when I'm cooking, cleaning, basically doing the typical boring household stuff. But also when I'm traveling, I enjoy listening to a podcast. And so now and then I watch an interesting documentary. I try to read daily, both books and articles on the World Wide Web. And when scrolling the web, one link leads to another, and before I know it, I have 50 plus browser tabs open of interesting articles or videos that I want to read or watch later. But in the end, I never find time to revisit them again. So I close everything, give myself a mental pep talk. You're still the man, bro. Because deep down, I know this is not the way to go. So if you think about it, we live in an age of information overload and we spend a lot of time consuming all this information. But if I look at myself, most of this information I forget and cannot recall. So all this consumption of information basically sounds like a waste of time. So yeah.
I should not waste my time on all this knowledge enhancement stuff. Look at you, you even tried to make a video about building a second brain. Loser. You should chill, eat some candy and watch Netflix. Living life, you know. No, this cannot be true. Because anything you want to accomplish, whether it is getting a new job, starting a business or learning a new skill, it all comes down to finding and using information. I mean, we need food and water to survive, but we also need information to live, to understand and adapt to our environment, to maintain relationships and cooperate with others, and to make wise decisions. You are what you consume, and that applies just as much to information as to nutrition. But it is impossible to remember all this information that we consume on a daily basis.
So what's the solution for this? Well, do you know this guy? This is Tiago Forte, and he wrote this book called Building a Second Brain. Now, when we talk about a second brain, you may think about extremely advanced technologies like an AI brain chip or something like that. But it is way simpler. The centerpiece of the second brain is a digital note-taking app. Tiago explains that in our day-to-day lives, we already use a calendar app as an extension of our brain's ability to remember events. And we can see our smartphone, this thing right here, as an extension of our ability to communicate. So why not use a digital note-taking app as an extension of our brain's memory? Now, this may sound a bit strange, but the idea behind it is as follows. We are already consuming a lot of information. We just need to keep the things that resonates with us in a single place, because then we can simply use that information and recall it whenever needed. Now, there are currently a lot of digital note-taking apps, so if you are interested in this, I suggest to go to this website buildingasecondbrain.com/resources to find the app that best fits your needs. I will place the link in the description. Now, once you have your note-taking app, the fun can begin. Tiago invented a methodology for building, using and maintaining a second brain called CODE. Now, CODE stands for Capture, Organize, Distill and Express. So let's dive a bit deeper. Capture more or less relates to keep what resonates. So everything that resonates with you, you write down in your note-taking app. Now, this can be highlights from a book or article, interesting quotes, for instance from a podcast, or a great website that you want to remember. It can be notes from a meeting, or maybe you find some interesting images on social media, but you can also capture your own thoughts, which pop up during the day. Most of the time we simply don't create these notes. We hear or see something interesting and we tend to think, I will just remember this thing. But after a while we forget it. And actually, it's not only that. Another advantage of adapting an information capturing habit like this is that our brain doesn't have to remember it, which in return results into more peace of mind. As described in the book, your mind is for having ideas, not holding them. Secondly, there's a term called recency bias, which basically means that we tend to favor the ideas, solutions, and influences that occur to us most recently, regardless of whether they are the best ones. For instance, during a brainstorming session, we think of the thoughts that first come to mind, but these are not necessarily the best ideas. Now, with a second brain, where lots of ideas can be permanently saved, we can review all of our previous thoughts as well. I mean, quotes from a book that you read months ago might sit next to the latest clever tweet that you just saw a few days ago. So, the first step is just capture the stuff that resonates with you in your note-taking system. Alright, now how should you organize the content once you've captured it? This is an important step because, as mentioned by Tiago, capturing notes without an effective way to organize and retrieve them only leads to more overwhelm. So Tiago invented an organizing system called PARA, which stands for Projects, Areas, Resources and Archives. So every piece of information that you want to save can be placed into one of these 4 categories. In projects, you save everything that you are working on right now and has an end date. Or in other words, the things you store in here have a beginning and an end. For instance, the notes about this book, which I use for this video, goes right into my projects folder. Now, in areas, you save everything that doesn't have an end date. So these are more or less long-term responsibilities that you want to manage over time. For example, areas can be finances or health, because these things don't have an end date, they are ongoing. Thirdly, we have resources. Now in here you save topics of interest that may be useful in the future. This is basically a catch-all for anything that doesn't belong to a project or an area. Finally, in archives, you save the things that you have completed or put on hold. For instance, I placed notes about this Building a Second Brain book in the archives folder after I completed this video. So, as you may have noticed, with PARA your notes will be organized by actionability, or in other words, from more actionable to less actionable. Alright, so at this point we have captured all this stuff and organized it by actionability, and what should happen then? Well, when you first capture your notes, they are like unfinished pieces of raw material, and we need to refine them a bit to turn them into truly valuable knowledge assets. Now, this is where distilling comes in. Tiago explains this concept called progressive summarization, which basically means that you highlight the main points of a note and then highlight the main points of those highlights and so on. Now, the goal of this is to make it easy to find and work with our notes in the future, because then by simply glancing at these highlights we can quickly find the essence of a note. Alright, then the final step in this code framework, which is express. And this is the end goal of this whole code framework. Now, the idea of express is basically that you show your work, just like I'm doing right now in this video. But you don't have to create a video, of course. There are lots of other ways to express your work as well. I mean, you can write a blog post, give a presentation, or do some one-on-one coaching, etc. So basically all the previous steps, capturing, organizing and distilling, are geared toward one ultimate purpose. And that is sharing your own ideas, your own story and your own knowledge with others. Now, before we end the video, shout out to Tiago Forte. His book really inspired me, and I hope I also inspired you a bit with this video. So yeah, for me, just like working out has become a part of my lifestyle, I also want to make this whole code framework a part of my lifestyle. I mean, the next time I'm on my smartphone, I'm creating value by capturing things in my digital note-taking app, instead of killing time.